Hi, I'm Dr. Sam Bunting, and today I'm going to be talking about Bacne. Now that's back acne for short, but I'll also talk a bit about chest acne. So essentially acne on the trunk. Now, whenever I say that, it always reminds me of a moment when I said to a patient if they had acne on their trunk, and they looked at me like I was insane. I think they thought I meant like an elephant trunk. So when I say trunk, I mean chest, back, and shoulders. Anyway, it's a very common problem, and we're filming in summer, and certainly I do tend to see it become more of an issue in summer for obvious reasons. We're exposing more skin, and it can be quite a hindrance. People feel self-conscious at the gym. They might feel self-conscious about exposing skin on the beach on holidays. So it's something to be tackled, oftentimes as part of a concerted effort to improve the skin as a whole, but it does sometimes occur in isolation. And sometimes there's a massive mismatch between the clarity of skin in the face. I've seen patients who've had the most pristine, perfect facial skin, and then they undress and the trunk is, covered in spots, blackheads, closed and open comedones, the whole shebang. So it can be a discrete entity in its own right, and it does warrant a specific approach. I mean, the reason for troublesome spots on the back especially is because it's an area of high density sebaceous gland coverage. So lots of sebaceous glands means that there's lots of potential for skin clogging, and then downstream of that, oil gets kind of clogged up in the hair follicle that breeds bacteria, and then the immune system sees that party going on down there in the hair follicle, and it creates inflammatory lesions, be they spots in the form of papules and pustules, or the more deep-seated and painful tender nodules and cysts. So always important when I see a patient with acne to inquire about whether or not they have problems in those sorts of regions in the body and examine them properly. First and foremost, it's always about making sure that someone isn't propagating the problem through their habits. So common things that might increase a tendency to break out on the body is the use of cosmetics. So I look at products that contain coconut oil or cocoa butter, things that are highly comedogenic, which means they promote the clogging of the pores. And they're quite trendy right now. So I take out my red pen and I eliminate products like that. And I encourage the use of universal products that can be used on body and face, like Cetaphil, gentle cleanser, moisturizing lotion and cream, because essentially if you don't have those kind of tempting, luxy, trendy products on your bathroom shelf, then you're less likely to use them. So that's something I sort of strike out. The next thing in terms of beauty habits is to think about fake tan use. I have seen patients who literally fake tan themselves into bad body acne. Sleeping in fake tan in particular, I think, is troublesome and can lead to formation of really kind of quite sizable block pores in the form of blackheads, and then lead to acne further on downstream. So I think anybody who uses fake tan on a fairly regular basis knows that it does tend to promote pore clogging. There are a couple of brands that I think are better than others. I think Sisley is excellent, and I think that Lancome is good. And I think the other thing to think about is just, if you're going to do it, apply it perhaps in the early evening, and that works really well when you're on holiday. So you come in from your day out using sunscreen, perhaps on the beach, you shower it off, and then you apply your suntan, your self-tan product, and then it develops over the course of the evening, and then you can shower it off before bed so you're not sleeping in it. So that's what I encourage patients who want a faux glow to do. I would also discourage the use of a lot of physical exfoliation. It just doesn't tend to work very well for acne in general, and body acne in particular. I think it's an irritant, and I think for the vast majority of people it will just drive the problem to flare. Sun tanning, we know, is not good for so many reasons, but I think it's also important to be aware that tanning your skin with UV will again promote comedogenesis. That means more clogged pores. So while sometimes you get a brief respite because of the anti-inflammatory effect of the sun's rays, you tend to pay for it later on, and you'll get a nasty flare when you come back in from the sun back to normal UK weather, if you live in the UK, that is. But yeah, tanning isn't good for those who are acne prone. So that's a lot of the things that you shouldn't do. I think the same principles apply when it comes to managing lifestyle, so managing stress and avoiding foodstuffs that we know tend to promote acne. So that means minimizing your dairy, cutting back on high GI index, refined carbohydrates, and ensuring you get plenty of zinc and the good fats, your omega-3s. I think exercise is an important thing to think of as a separate entity, because I do think that if you're acne prone, the combination of sweat, tight-fitting clothing, and maybe not showering immediately after activity can again promote poor activity that can lead to breakouts and a worsening of acne if you've already got it. So I think it's important to stay as cool as you can. I think it's important to wear high quality, moisture wicking fabrics. For example, yoga gear from Lululemon is really good for this. And I think where possible, to cleanse the skin after a vigorous workout if you can. Now that may be something as simple as using a cotton pad with an appropriate treatment product on it after you've worked out, and that may be a good halfway measure if you can't actually shower immediately, if you're working out in the middle of the day, for instance. Now that brings us on to the topic of what to do if you're breaking out in the body. And I think that the basic principles that we apply to treating acne anywhere apply when you're treating acne on the back and to some extent the chest, although the chest is a little special because the skin there is so thin and delicate. I think it almost takes a more gentle approach than facial acne does. So I sort of think of that as being a separate thing. The back is one of the thickest parts of the body in terms of the skin, and therefore it's quite resilient. So it tends to be able to take a little bit more punchy treatment. So the way I tend to approach acne, if we're talking about things that are widely accessible over the counter, is to think about anti-inflammatory effects that you get from the use of salicylic acid, and at 1 to 2% concentration makes the most sense, and benzoyl peroxide, which is a potent antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. I'm fond of the Bacne Cleansiderm system. It's one of the few systems that we have access to benzoyl peroxide at a 5% strength over the counter. Benzoyl peroxide is difficult to get hold of in the UK, but the other brand that's good is Acne Side. So something like a cotton pad with a 2% salicylic acid treatment on it in the form of a kind of a toner, and this is the one I recommend. It's called Pore Therapy from Cleansiderm by Bacne. And that can be swiped on the skin immediately after you work out. And it can be used once or twice a day. And then at night time, something like benzoyl peroxide tends to be a really effective way of treating blemishes. And I think that, you know, the reality is that if you have large, extensive areas of involvement, something like that may not be sufficient. You may require oral treatment. So my approach with over-the-counter type preparations is give them a try, cut back on all the things that we know might make you more breakout prone, adopt a simple regime that involves a non-comedogenic skin cleanser like Cetaphil, salicylic acid and benzoyl peroxide. Start off gentle every other day, build up to daily use, and maybe give it 4 to 6 weeks. That's enough time to generally see if you're going to get a handle on it. However, if you've got significant scarring, and by scars I mean dips in the skin, or you have a lot of nodules and cysts, that's big lumpy lesions which are painful, and large surface areas involved, you're probably better off going and getting your doctor's input in as quick, fairly promptly, rather than waiting. But I think for others where it's more a little bit on the shoulders and, just enough to make you not feel 100% comfortable with a low back top, then a simple over-the-counter approach like that will work in a lot of people. Chests, as I mentioned, are a little trickier, but really the way to go about that is using the same sort of tools, but maybe doing it less frequently and applying product over the top of moisturizer, which can sometimes just reduce penetration and therefore reduce irritancy. Go slow with little amounts at the beginning. You can always build up to more. Acne does not respond well to blitzing with topicals. It just tends to irritate, and then you have acne and eczema at the same time. So those are the simple things I think you can do to approach breakouts on the back. It's a common problem. It's something that I think probably all of us will experience at some point in time, but there are simple things we can do to avoid it as much as anyone can, and there are simple, accessible measures to trying to get it under control. But if those aren't working for you, do seek medical input, because it may well be that you would benefit from oral treatments. I hope that helps you get a handle on your Bacne, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.